Severe persecution of the Anabaptist Waldenses in France about A.D. 1280. P.J. Twisk, having noticed in the first part of his chronic for the year 1280 the doctrine of the Waldenses, whom he calls Waldois, after their leader Peter Waldus, finally speaks of their persecutions, saying, Matthias Illyricus, in his register of the witnesses of the truth, says that he has in his possession the consultations of certain advocates of Avignon, also of the 3 bishops of Narbonne, Arles, and Aix, and of the bishop of Alban, tending to the extermination of the Waldois or Waldenses, and written 300 years previously, from which it is evident that at that time and before a great number of the believers were scattered here and there throughout France. We can also infer from the consultations of the aforesaid archbishops that even as their number was great, so was also the persecution against them very cruel, for at the end of this consultation it is written, Who is so great a stranger in France as to be ignorant of the damnatory sentence, thus speak these papists themselves, which has now, for a long time, been most justly used against these heretical Waldenses, and should we doubt a matter so notorious and common, which has cost the Catholics so much money, sweat, and labor, and has been sealed with so many condemnations and executions of unbelievers, thus he calls the true believers. Hence appears, writes Twisk, what massacres of believers occurred at this time, and what cruelties the subjects of Antichrist employed against them. And it can be proved, says Boxhorn, even from the testimony of their greatest enemies, that they declared, maintained, and testified in the midst of the fire, that they had received this their faith unaltered from hand to hand from the time of the apostles, and they continued even to the present time, having never been entirely exterminated. Continuation of the preceding persecution, A.D. 1283. Melanus writes that, A.D. 1283, the Waldenses had again greatly increased in France, as also in other countries throughout Christendom, notwithstanding they had been very cruelly sought out and persecuted up to this time. In the second book of the history of the persecutions, further spreading of the aforesaid persecution in which the Waldenses were burnt in great numbers, A.D. 1284. P.J. Twisk gives the following account for the year 1284. The Waldois or Waldenses, of whom since the year 1159 much mention is made, increased at this time more and more in France and other countries of Christendom, notwithstanding that they were craftily sought out and cruelly persecuted, and that all the diligence and every means had been first employed utterly to exterminate them, which greatly astonished certain bishops and advocates of Avignon of the time. They were burnt, he writes, in great numbers.